Okay, welcome to Chapter 2. In Chapter 2 we're going to set up a random number generator. Many of you may be asking, what does a random number generator have to do with statistics, and why are we dedicating an entire chapter to it? Well, random number generators are very important in business statistics. Remember, being a business-centered stat course, we're going to do things a little different than a traditional undergraduate stat course. In a traditional course, odds are you wouldn't do a random number generator. But in business, you need to select random groups quite often. If you're doing any kind of statistical analysis, this type of thing comes up. You may need to take a random selection of 10 people out of a group of 100. How do you do that without any bias being introduced? You can do it with a random number generator. How do you come up with a list of truly random? Maybe you have a list of numbers and you need to pick out of that list, you need to pick 5 that are truly random. How do you do that? And that's what we're going to learn here today. This is going to be our shortest chapter, but it's also going to be a valuable one. It'll help with your Excel toolbox, the things you know how to do in Excel. As with the first chapter, we're going to do things pretty much straight from the book, and I'm going to explain what we're doing as we go. So we're starting on page 21. In cell A3, I'm going to type frame number. I prefer to not use all capitals like the book does. Type number 1 down here. I just think this is a little easier on the eye. I'm still of the opinion when somebody does all caps that they're shouting at me, and I don't want my own Excel sheet to be shouting at me. And then it asks us to put in a series of 32 numbers. So remember from chapter 1, we're going to go over here to fill, series. We're going to do columns since we're doing vertical. Stop value 32. Hit OK. Gives us 32 there. I can show you that they're all there. Yep. Okay, now we're going to go over here to B. And I am on page 23 right now. I'm going to type duplicate frame number and do the same thing. I'm going to type number 1. Go over here to fill, series, columns, 32. Hit OK. And now this is kind of a mess here, so let's expand the column widths to make it a little prettier. And I'm also going to center them both, select all of both columns just by selecting. It's a little trick we haven't done yet. See, if I just put my cursor on A and drag it over to B, I select it all, center it. And not only will these be centered, but everything I type in these columns in the future will be centered. So now we are through page 24 and on to page 25, and we're going to create a list of random numbers. So we're going to type in row C, column C I should say, random number, enter. I'm going to change the width here. I'm also going to go ahead and center these, and so everything in the future will be centered. Now I'm going to create random numbers, and to do that I type =, rand, open close parentheses. It's a little bit of an odd formula, but that's it, and you hit enter, and you should all have 0.38312. I'm kidding. We just generated a random number. Everybody's number is going to be different, so my little form of a video joke there, that we all have different numbers. The random generator will generate a random number between 0 and 1. So all of you should have a number between 0 and 1. And every time you do anything on your sheet and hit enter, I'm just going to hit my delete key right here. That number is going to change. Okay, so you all have different numbers, and if you're on a Mac, the delete key won't work. And so if you just every time you enter something and then you put a number in and then hit enter, that number is going to change. So what we've done is, in creating a random number between 0 and 1, what we can do is sort those random numbers and come up with a list of randomly selected numbers on this side over here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and drag these down so I have a random number for each of the 32 items we've already done. So I've got that box selected, get my little plus sign in the corner and drag it down to the bottom. Once again, all of your random numbers will be different than mine. And so now we have a different random number for each of these numbers. And in order to say select 5 random duplicate frame numbers, we are going to sort this column from smallest to largest. So the smallest 5 random numbers are going to select 5 duplicate frame numbers at random. So let's go ahead and highlight from duplicate frame number to random number and slide all the way down. Highlight all of that, and then we're going to go back, scroll back up to the top. I'm going to select data, sort. This gives us a great chance to look at our sorting function. I'm going to sort by random number, sort on values, and smallest to largest, hit OK. And it's put over here the smallest 5 the duplicate frame numbers. I'm going to highlight these. The duplicate frame numbers with the smallest random number. Now I know what you're thinking. These aren't the smallest random numbers because, hey, look down here. This one's smaller than these, because those random numbers changed when I clicked sort. But these are the 5 smallest from that list of random numbers that we originally sorted. I'm sorry if that's confusing, but every time you hit something, that list of random numbers is going to change. So this was the former list. So these are the 5 duplicate frame numbers that were attached to the smallest random number when we sorted. Your duplicate frame numbers that came out as the 5 are going to be different than mine. Odds are they're going to be different than mine. And mine are different than what the book looks like, because the book has, let's see here, on page 28, a little farther than that, on page 30, they have 7, 2, 8, 17, and 27. I have 15, 25, 22, 28, and 13. This may make more sense if you think of it, instead of us having numbers here, maybe we had names, and you were selecting, you had 32 people in your department, and you had to select 5 to give raises to randomly. And that would be an odd way to give raises. Or maybe 5 of them get a free gift card to the Olive Garden. And so instead of 15, 25, 22, and are numbering people 1 through 32, you could have used names. So Fred and Bill and Marge and Jennifer, and you put all their names, and then you could select them at random, and there'd be no selection bias whatsoever. So that's what a random number generator is, that's what a random number generator does, and that's how to use one. You don't need to worry about printing. Remember that from the last chapter. No need to print anything. And one last piece of explanation here. The frame number and duplicate frame number, they say, why did we use those terms? The book chose to use them. There's no real good reason why we chose those. You could simply put, instead of duplicate frame number, employee number, and that would be fine. Frame number, this was used as a frame of reference, so you could look what the list, you could see what the list originally looked like. So this could also be employee number, in which case we'd have to expand it. And this would be duplicate employee number if you wanted to do that. And so you could see how things were organized originally. Once again, with numbers, you probably don't need this column A, but if you were using names, it might be nice to see how all the names were originally organized. Maybe you put them in all alphabetically, and then you sort them, and then you have your list of those that had the smallest random numbers next to them. That way, if somebody were to want to look at how you did things, how you made your selection, you could show them, and it would hopefully it would make sense. So that's it for chapter 2. We'll be back for chapter 3.